Next class now, we want to use one stone to kill two birds. We want to have a router. That router is going to be doing routing for us, and it will still be doing our DHCP server. Okay, so I will set up my end devices. This time around, I'm not configuring any static IP on it. So I pick the PCs. Let's say we have 5 of them. And this time around, we will have a printer because we are really setting things up and begin to see so that everybody can also have access to printing services. So now we have a switch that we are going to be using to connect all of these devices together. So we have 2960 series Cisco switch. So because of our time, we are not going to be naming them. I believe we can all know how to label them now. So we can do that. But make sure you label them in your own assignment. So I connect these devices. Endpoint, say PC1 goes to, I want to use PC1 to connect from 11. I have a reason for that, but let's just go. So 11, then 2 goes to 12. 3 goes to 13. 4 goes to 15. Oh, sorry, 14. 5 goes to 15. So I want to put our printer because you are going to reserve some ports or some IP. So I'll put our printer on port 2 and router. What do we need a router for? A router is to enable us to be able to connect to the outside world. That is what it does. A router is used for connection to between two networks. Remember, LAN is just a single network. One now, where we need the router, so we can configure this 0/0, or let's use 0/1 to connect to fast Ethernet 0/1. Now, we need to configure IP address. So all of this, the PC, remember we are not configuring any IP on them. We want the DHCP to do the magic for us. We don't want to go to all of these devices and configure any IP on them. The DHCP should do the magic for us. But if we are going to do that, I've written up a small notepad that will help us to be able to do that. So if I want to configure this, the first thing is to configure the router host name. I will send the command to us. So configure the router host name. Then the second step is to configure the interface that will provide DHCP server. That's the second step. Gigabit 0/0. Okay. Let's pick our IP. Let's say the IP we want to use. The IP we want to use is, somebody should suggest an IP block for us. Israel, suggest an IP for us. Give us a block of IP of your choice.
192.192.68.
168, anything, okay.
192.168
Mm-hmm.
dot 10.
Okay, .10.0/24. So this is the block we are using. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So we are using this block. This is our DHCP block, or the DHCP, or the IP subnet we want to use. So let's say this is our IP subnet or IP range, anyone it's called. So IP subnet, IP range, you are still saying the same thing. So now we want .1 to be on the router, and then printer should take maybe but .2. Then every other devices can move from .11 upward. So the first thing is I will log into this router. If I want to configure a name for this router, you can configure the name here. They say router 0. Here, display name, I can say Network Kings router. Network Kings router. Once we do that, it will, you see that it has changed to Network Kings router here. So you can change it to any router. But for you to configure this router, you come to CLI. CLI. So under this CLI, you press enter. Config T. The first thing is, let me exit it so that you see. So if I come in, the first thing you have to press is enable. Enable. You type enable. It will take you from the raw mode to the config mode. So you want to be able to configure it. So you take it from configure terminal. You move to configure terminal. And if you look at the interface, if I place my cursor here, it will tell me this interface is gigabit 0/1 connecting to fast Ethernet 0/1 on the switch. So I brought up that notepad the other time. On my notepad, you can see interface gigabit 0/1. So I change this, and the IP we are using is 192.168.10.1 should be on that interface, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Then you say no short and then exit. So we are going to follow that command. So we pick this interface. I will copy it from here. Copy. I come to the router and I paste it. So I've entered that interface now. IP address. The IP address we want to configure is 192.168.10.1 and 255.255.255.0. Then you will say no short. That is, it should bring up the interface, no shutdown. You will see that it tells us that the interface has changed to up, and you will see the red here has turned to green. In other words, this router now is able to communicate on this place, but the router only have IP. We have not configured DHCP on this router. Now we are going to look at the steps to configure DHCP on the router. So we have done the step 1, we've done step 2. Step 3 says configure the DHCP pool. So I will say IP DHCP pool. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is the network that we want to configure. Our default router, that's the gateway. So let me copy it. Let me just remove what I don't need there. So I'll remove this, remove this, remove this, remove this, and this. So if I copy all of this now, I will have. So what pool do we want to give this router? Let's call it LAN DHCP pool. So, and the IP pool we are using is the 10 network, 192.168.10.0. So, and the default router, that's the default router, is the IP of that router itself, 10.1. So we have DNS. So if I copy this now, copy, and I paste it on the router. So I will exit this interface. So, and I do paste. You see, once there is no error, it tells you that everything has been successful. So I've configured the IP DHCP pool, LAN router, the network, the default router, and the DNS server has been configured. Now, let's check the next step. Our next step says we should exclude specific address from being assigned by DHCP. For instance, you don't need your printer to be getting IP via DHCP, because DHCP means the IP can change. Tomorrow you can come and meet a different IP, but your printer should have a static IP. So you don't expect that printer to pick IP via DHCP. So we need to exclude some IP. So if you want to exclude, though it's put here that it's optional, but we need to exclude some IP. So we want to exclude from dot 1 to dot, let's say from dot 1 to dot 20. Let's exclude from dot 1 to dot 20. So I'll remove this. The only command you want to type in is IP DHCP exclude this range of IP and paste. So that is done. Now let's verify that the DHCP configuration is there. If I do show runs, show running config section DHCP. So you can see that it's telling me that I've configured the DHCP should be excluded, and is the LAN. We didn't configure the host name of the router. How do I configure the host name? Config T host name. I can call it NetKings, or let's just call it LAN router. LAN router. So you see that the name has changed from ordinary router to LAN router. And if I want to save, W write. So we write in. So this configuration is already saved. Fine. Now let's go to this first PC. Okay. Remember, we didn't configure any static IP here, right? So if I click on DHCP, let's see what will it do now. Did you see that it has automatically given us what? An IP address 192.168.10.2. But we are not expecting it to give us 10.2. We are expecting it to give us something.
Any showroom.
Huh?
Any guy.
Hey, somebody is talking there. Okay, let's see if we can mute him. I'm doing that already. Just wait for me. All right, I've muted him. Okay, so our DHCP server, let's see again. What do we exclude? We exclude from dot 1. Oh, there was an error. Look at the configuration. We do show run. If we look at our config, show run DHCP, we say it should exclude from 192.168.10.1 to 192.168.1.20. No, it should be 10.20. So we say no. If you want to remove that one, no IP DHCP pull this, so we remove this. No is to negate, to remove. So I've removed that now. So if we want to paste it back now, so instead of saying 1 here, we will say 10. Aha. So we now remove the no. So if I go back and check my config now, it's correct. So if we go back and try to check our IP again, it should give us IP from dot 20 and above. Can you see now? 192.168.10.21. You must understand what you are doing when you are building a network. When it's working perfectly, you know. So from this PC now, I should be able to ping that router. So if we say IP config on this PC now, it should give us 192.168.10.21, and you can see the default gateway 10.1. So if I ping 192.168.10.1, it should be responding. So there is a movement of packets from this PC all the way to this router. Same thing applicable to PC2. If I decide to pick an IP via DHCP, it should give me .22. It will be following that process. You see, automatically, I don't have to come and assign IP, assign DNS, assign gateway. So on and on like that. PC3, I go there, I just click DHCP. 23, no stress. PC4, I go there, DHCP. 24, seamless. PC5, DHCP as well. And with this, you see, we have configured the IPs on all the whole devices. Now, for the printer, can the printer pick IP via DHCP? Yes, if you click DHCP, the printer will also pick IP. Are you seeing now? It went to pick gateway, and it picks the gateway of the router. So let's look at the interface. We are asked it to pick. Are you seeing? It has picked IP via DHCP. And what did it pick? 26. But when you are setting up a printer, you don't want the IP to be changing. So you need to set it as static. So we have given our router .1. We can give this printer .2, 10.2. And the subnet man will automatically populate, and we close this. From this printer, we should be able to ping our router if there is ping on it. So there is no ping, but we can ping other devices from, or ping the printer from other devices. The printer is expected to do printing and not to do pings for us. Okay, do we have any question, please? Any question? Our time has been fast spent. Do we have any question? Do we understand what we are to do now? So you are submitting 2 assignments between now and Sunday evening. Yes, I'm listening.
I'm not seeing any DHCP server here.
Hello? I
Can
can't
you
hear
hear
you.
me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I said I didn't see any DHCP server here. So did you use the one from the previous design you did?
Okay, so this router is also your DHCP server, and I configured the DHCP server inside this router. So I said at the beginning that we want to use one stone to kill two birds. This router is doing routing, and it's also doing DHCP for you. And that is the configuration that we have inside the router. And that's what I brought this paper up here, where you see step 3, configure DHCP pool. I'm going to copy this note and send it to us. So you can just make modification on it depending on how you want to configure your own LAN setup. So I'm not using, there's no way I can use the DHCP from the other one. You are building a new network here. So this new design must have its own DHCP server. So the DHCP server is sitting inside this router, Cisco 29 series. Do you understand? Do you understand now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other question before we call it a day?
Is this class recorded, sir?
Yes, it is. Okay. Any other question? So if there is no,
Thank you, sir.
all right. If there's no any other question, thank you for coming to class today. Do have a wonderful night.